Good evening, everyone. Let's call the meeting to order, and if we'll all stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for coming. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And there have been several changes made to the agenda. So I would entertain a motion to approve the revised agenda as presented.
Move to approve the third revision of the agenda.
Motion. Second. Motion by Andy, seconded by Jeannie. Any discussion on the revised agendas?
I do. We have revisions that came in at 3:30 this afternoon, and one is on the consent agenda. So I would ask that be removed from the consent agenda. So that would be the classified employees, I think.
Aren't they both on? We had the add-on voucher, and then
the voucher's not on the consent agenda, though.
Oh, you're right. You're right. That's action. My bad. Am I not speaking loud enough? First time I've ever heard that.
Okay, so there is, if I'm understanding this correctly, the third revision is not on the agenda. Is that correct?
One of the items that was added at 3:30 today is added to the consent agenda. Okay. And that was classified personnel revised. I would ask to have that removed from the consent agenda.
Okay, remove from the consent and put it under action.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm happy to do that. I show that there is a revision to the consent agenda on my posted, on the agenda on my form. I don't show where that's at though. Craig, where is that?
It's under certified personnel.
It's classified as item B.
Sorry, classified personnel.
Okay, that does not pop up on my screen though.
It's on the Spanish. It's on the regular one too.
I've got it on.
Oh, okay. It's not okay. It's just not on the actual agenda itself. All right. We will move that then down to action.
Mine shows it's revised.
Yeah, but see, it doesn't show it on mine. All right. So we will move the classified personnel down to action items. Thank you. Classified personnel. It refresh on. Thank you, Elisa. All right. Are there any other comments on the approval of the agenda? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the agenda with the one change of moving the classified personnel down to action, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. So all yes. Thank you. All right. The next thing on the agenda tonight is under communications is the recognition of state athletes, and I will turn that over to Mr. Ellis.
Yeah, so we had many of our winter sport athletes perform really great at throughout the season and at state. So as we know, that takes a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat, a lot of determination, especially during the spring and summer months. And so there's a lot that goes into a performance like that throughout the season. So we wanted to give board members an opportunity to shake their hand and congratulate them in person. And so how we're going to do this is we have certificates for you. We also have some cookies for you as well, but we're going to announce team by team if you come up and shake the board members' hands, and then Craig will present you with a certificate. Deanna will give you your sugar cookie. And then Kevin or Sonia, if one of you has your iPhones on you, if you could snap a photo, and hopefully that's something that we can add to our district webpage. So I appreciate your hard work. Our athletes are like ambassadors of the school district. And so if people know Prosser, usually it's because somebody from our community has been in their community and performed in an excellent way. And so definitely we've had a reputation. You guys did great work, and you represented our school and our district in just an exceptional manner. So thank you and congratulations. So with that, I will start with the boys basketball team. So sure, yeah, we can stand up. Players: JJ Reyes, Kobe McClure, Colby Phillips, Chris Velos, Corey McClure, Drayden Griffiths, Carson Bailey, Caden Rivera, Isaac Holtberg, Nathan Garcia, AJ Gonzalez, and Max Flores, Kevin Max Flores. Hey, great job, guys.
Chris,
Fantastic
I
work.
hope everybody's here.
Great
Corey,
job.
you're here?
Heck of a season. Good job.
Graydon,
Good job.
I want to make sure you get the
Jeez,
right
don't break
one,
my hand.
right?
Yeah.
Carson,
Great job. Yeah.
oh,
Good job. A lot of hard work.
21,
job.
man. Is that what it is?
Good job.
Yeah. No, what is it?
And we also want to recognize their coaches for their excellent work. Toby
Blackjack.
Cox, Kason Blair,
Isaac,
Quinn Martin, and Corey Phillips, and the managers,
anybody-
Jasmine
anybody
Lopez
miss?
and Alicia Martin. So thank you for all your hard work and organization
All right.
and your coaching.
Kevin? All right, man, good job. Thank you. So Coach Cox not coming? Blair, Phillips? Martin? Oh, you're already doing the girls now? I'm behind, wait. Wait, are you guys?
Good job, guys. Good job. Keep it up.
Are you
Yeah.
on here?
Good job. Keep it up.
Do we have?
Excellent work. Good job. Yeah.
We have
Good job.
those
Keep it up.
certificates? Ken?
Yes.
All right, good guess. Corey?
That's me. Yep.
Man, oh,
So
managers, dang it. Oh, hand me those girls, will you? We should, they just came up.
we'll move on to girls basketball. And if they're here, we'd like to recognize them. Naomi Chavez, Kendra Gronveld, Adriana Milanes, Ellie Meljars, Melia Cortez, Aima Ibarra, Laylee Dixon, Cambry Blair, Leela Taylor, Alexis Gomez, Haley Wright, Kinsey Cox, Teresa Halfmoon, and Maylee Martinez. So, and their coaches, Kyler Bachhoffner, Jessica Huntington, Tamara Jones, Tara Bailey. So, excellent work. Good job.
One? That's the right one?
Athletic trainer, Mackenzie Lopez, Brenda Cruz,
Okay, let's see where.
Oslin Schaub, and Chloe Saldana. For the girls wrestling team, we'll wait for Craig to get the certificates in order.
After Howard. Check this. All right, thank you.
So girls wrestling. Girls wrestling is always great. I'm always intimidated by a girl who I think can beat me up. So Cami Anderson and her coach Jeremy Anderson and Jennifer Reyna. Congratulations on your finish at state. Way to go. Good job.
Tammy,
Yeah.
there you go.
Good job.
How's it going?
And then wrestling actually was holding a banquet tonight. And so they're here. Awesome. There you are. Nehemiah Medrano, Carson Wolf, Abel Acosta. And then, great job. Coaches Juan Jaimez and Lupe Hudgens. All right.
We had to take a 5-minute walk out there and interrupt the bank.
Haley Schmidt and AJ Howe. If we want to, if we,
Tell me who you are.
I move we take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
All in favor, aye.
You can talk loud enough.
Thank you guys for humoring me.
Yeah. Thank you. That was very nice. Okay, we will resume the board meeting. And we'll go right into student reports. Yes, we did. Zeke, do you have a report tonight?
The fellowship that I'm in, we're currently learning a policy evaluation method. It's called the impact method, which we use to evaluate policy for its equability, if that makes any sense.
Thank you, Zeke. All right. Moving on to protocol for addressing the school board. This is the time of the evening where we welcome members of the community that would like to address the school board, an opportunity to do so, both those people that are present tonight and also those that are part of our Zoom audience. Do we have Selena, did anybody fill out? Nobody on the list? Okay. Then I'm going to ask our folks up in the technical booth if we have anybody in our Zoom audience that would like to address the board tonight. Okay. And so I'll ask one more time for those people that are here in the audience if anybody would like to address the board. Okay, hearing none, then we will go ahead and move on. The next item on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. And just a reminder that we have removed the classified personnel off of the consent agenda for tonight, and it has been moved down to action items. So I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, so motion by Jason, seconded by Elisa. Are there any comments on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, yes, thank you. On to action items. The first action item is the approval of the vouchers. I entertain a motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Move to approve the revised vouchers.
Motion by Andy to approve the revised vouchers as presented.
I'll second.
Motion, okay, motion by Andy, seconded by Jeannie. Are there any discussions on the vouchers as presented?
I'd like to make a couple of comments if I could.
Pardon me?
I'd like to make a couple comments.
Okay, thank you.
Number one, this is a loud microphone. The revision that came today was the capital project vouchers. I've been waiting for probably 3 or 4 days for approval of the Fowler, who's working the construction project on Keene Riverview and Heights. And the process is the architect, well, certainly the general contractor provides us with the bill, it then gets approved at the architect level, and then it goes to Dan Purefoy, our construction manager. And I've been in contact with Dan since, like last Wednesday or Thursday. And we were waiting, hoping that he would be able to come to a resolution with Fowler on the percentages of completion. As of this afternoon, he was unable to do that. So I at least wanted to get Architects West and the other ones paid. So the lateness of these vouchers are on me. The other thing I want to just mention, maybe before Mr. Rayner, he did send me, and he sent me an email this morning, and I'd like to maybe respond just so the board is aware of what his questions are. And certainly if there's other questions, I'll do my best to answer those. On the ASB, there's a voucher payment to Holiday Inn, and those were for wrestlers at the districts and regionals in Moses Lake. The districts were in January and the regionals were in February, and there were 4 rooms for each of those events. So it's really 8 rooms. The description, I think, says maybe 2 rooms for one night. Pretty expensive rooms, but yeah. But there were actually 8 rooms for the wrestlers to do that. Also, he had a question on the U.S. Bank voucher, and his question was, what's the year-to-date expenses for U.S. Bank? And our first process is to try and use a purchase order for vendors, but we're finding out more and more vendors don't want to accept purchase orders. And so we do have district credit cards. So for Mr. Ellis, myself, and Ms. Flores. And so we basically sign out the credit card to someone that needs it. And we have spent $86,000 between October 15th and through this voucher that's on to be accepted tonight. And there's various, there's a lot of travel on there, airline tickets and those things. And Mr. Rayner, if you want, or I could provide the board with all those credit card copies if you would like. But there again, it's Matt and I and Deanna sign, even though it's not really us for the most part, using the card, but we loan them out to teachers and to secretaries whose the vendors don't accept purchase orders. So that's one of the questions on U.S. Bank. The other question was about the payment to community and schools. And the community and schools is a $95,000 contract for one site coordinator at Prosser High School and a site coordinator at the middle school. And I guess as a site coordinator, what does a site coordinator do?
So Communities in Schools is an organization that supports students so they can be at school and be successful. So when a student might be not coming to school, or the family might be experiencing food insecurity or housing insecurity, they case manage or work with families individually and students individually to help them meet whatever of those basic needs that need to be met. So that the student can be at school, because as we know, if kids aren't fed and housed and feeling safe, they a lot of times don't come to school, or if they do, they're not being very successful. So they help support that. You'll actually see in my just ironically in my report today, I got the report from Communities in Schools last week. And so I included that in my board report, and it details more specifically how they support students. The organization is out of the Tri-Cities. We are lucky to have 2 Communities in Schools coordinators. The organization also, the Communities in Schools of Benton Franklin County just got a $200+ million grant from Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, I can't remember her name, and McKinsey, I think. And so they do provide a lot of great services. The idea is they start looking at kids that aren't, like a kid's not coming to school, and then they work with the student and the families to find out really why aren't they coming? Are they staying home to babysit? Are they not coming because there might be mental health issues? Are they not coming because they don't have clothes that they feel comfortable coming to school with? Lots of reasons. So they take a family and really work with them to get the student to be at school and successful.
As I said, it's a $95,000 contract, started in June of 21. It's a 2-year contract, so it ends in June of 23. It can be terminated with 60 days notice. That's written in the contract. The funding for the 95,000 is 60,000 out of the state learning assistance program, high poverty grant. Title I pays for 15,000, and there's a basic education piece of 20,000. So that should be the 95,000 for community and schools. The other question dealt with Graduation Alliance. That is our online program. So there are two components. One is a strictly online. There's also a GED program through the high school. And as I said, one of my talks, conversations, we count the students, but yet we pay Graduation Alliance. So far this year, we've paid $129,000. So that's why on my enrollment, I take the online kids out of the enrollment, just because that's really the enrollment that we have.
A quick question to further that. Is it, so the apportionment dollars, you count for those students?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Is it 100%?
No, we get, get probably 90, we get 100%.
Yeah.
And then we pay out like 93% of that. So we make a little bit of money on that, but not much, not too much.
But they do count our enrollment, so that does impact our state and federal grant funding because it's based on student enrollment.
And then we also have a program that we pay to Jupiter Education Services, also known as Red Comet. That's a credit retrieval program. We've paid $34,175 so far to Juniper Education Services. Of course, at March 15th, our payment was $4,725. So again, that's another way for kids to earn credits. And I think that's online too. That's all online. Yeah.
But those students are here attending at the high school and are in Val Baker's class, so we aren't paying FT out from. We're paying $150 a course for them.
Is there any overlap between the Graduation Alliance and the Red Comet?
No, they're two separate programs and provide. The difference is Red Comet is like more of a one-off. Like I didn't pass history, so I can take my US history there. Graduation Alliance provides a more comprehensive service. So they're either students have chosen to be online for this year, or students who, it's more than a GED program because they try to pull kids back that we've lost or on the verge of losing because they're very credit deficient, or maybe they've even dropped out, and they try to bring kids back. And they have basically time until they're 21 to get they can get their actual Prosser School District diploma, or they can earn a GED. It's a student's choice. So it's a more comprehensive program. Red Comet is really like one class at a time.
And then do we know how many students are impacted with the community and schools money?
The report, yeah, it's in my report, but you can look at it right now. It's the last page in the end of the board packet. This is the report that I received from communities and schools for the mid-year and what they've done so far. And they have been down one person because they had a person out on medical leave. But school-wide services are, you can see some of the things that they do that are school-wide, big events, supporting things like that. You can see the number of basic needs that they've met with food and vouchers and backpacks and referrals, and how many students that served. And then when they talk about case management, That's more where they're really working intensely with a student and their family. And that impacts more than just the middle school or the high school kids, because even though it's a middle school and high school program, if they're working with a family and they have elementary students, it impacts those as well. So those numbers would also be a part of this count. And then, so they're doing some of those things that are like once experiences, or, food bags each week to take home. But then there are case managed families, which you can see there's 65 of those. And they are really working to get the kids to school, because that's the biggest barrier. So you can see at the bottom of their 65 case managed students, 64 of the students have an attendance goal they're working towards, and one has an academic goal. And then you can see on the last page, there's quite a list of things they do for those students that are being case managed.
Thank you.
The last three items Mr. Rayner asked about was the payments to Verizon. And those are for internet for on 2 school buses. It's like a $40 a month for each, so it'd be like $80 for Verizon is the internet. T-Mobile is the hotspots that the district put in during COVID. We're still paying those right now. There's like, how many, Sean? 288? Yeah, 200 right now? Oh, sorry. Sean, how many hotspots do we have? 288? There you go. Yep, so we have 288 hotspots currently right now. That's the T-Mobile bill. And then AT&T, there are a number of district cell phones that are given to people for district use. And that's the AT&T bill. It's like a group, so many megabytes or whatever the phrase is, data points. We have, we look at these often. For example, in October, the bill was $758, and now it's $637 that was paid the last time. So there are some, we're constantly looking if, somebody leaves or there's, a need for a line to be removed, then we shut it off. So, but those are, it's pretty, it's gone from $758 to $637 for AT&T.
Do you know offhand how many lines that represents?
I don't know offhand. But nurses, migrants, I believe Selena has a
You think over 100?
cell phones, maintenance. Yeah. So there might be 15 or 20, maybe. I could give you a number if you wanted.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So, Mr. Rayner, that's the ones that I have. I'll save my other comments for the financials when we get to that point. But any other questions I could do my best to answer?
When are the contracts up on the remaining 288 for the hotspots? Do you know offhand?
When's the contract up? June, August?
Okay, second question, how many of the 200 that just got shut down did we end up getting back, and how many vanished?
We don't want to answer that question.
Okay. That's better than I would have guessed too. Okay, thank you.
And
also, it was just a service we were.
right.
Okay.
They said they didn't necessarily want each unit back. So.
Were there any other questions on vouchers?
I have one on voucher number 94941 to Sylvan Learning. Is that, can you tell me what that expense represents?
49.
It's on page 33.
Yep, that's services for a special education student.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions, Mr. Rayner?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So hearing no other questions, we have a motion by Andy, seconded by Jeannie to approve the vouchers. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All yes, thank you. The next item under action is policy and procedure number 4040, public records request and resolution. I would entertain a motion to approve policy. Is this first reading policy and procedure 4040?
Do it have to be first reading, second reading, or can?
It's not listed as first reading.
Just an
So
adoption.
resolution,
This is
yeah.
an updated version, so it can.
You can move it to final.
Yeah, it had Matt's name on it. Everything, so.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion for a second and final reading then.
Move to approve policy procedure 4040, public records request resolution 04-22 to final reading and approval.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Jason. Is there any discussion?
We had talked about at the work session removing section C, and it's still in there, maintenance of indexes.
Yeah, so I thought that we got that addressed with Mr. Mumford. If we didn't, my apologies.
I was thinking we decided.
Yeah.
it was kind of redundant.
Yeah, there was,
Seems redundant.
with that particular one, the discussion is that there's no difference between formal and informal requests. And so the fact that we would have to respond to those, whether they're verbal at the building in an informal manner versus a formal filing of the record. But we can,
No, I'm talking about section C, the maintenance of indexes.
yeah, because of the large volume of records is continuing.
It doesn't discuss formal and informal.
Yeah,
So do we need then to pull this and does it need
if
additional work?
you want to pass it without that, with the removing C, we can double check with Sean Mumford and update it at a later date.
I do know the other part we talked about was that all requests go to the public officer, blah, blah, blah. That's in here now, so.
It is, and the 15-day was removed as well that we talked about.
Oh, I'd forgotten all about that. Good call. So is that how we want to do it, guys? Pass it with C stricken from it?
That's what I would support.
I agree.
Yeah, okay,
Do we
so-
vote my motion down and start over?
Yeah.
Just amend your motion.
Okay, in that case, I will amend my motion.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called now. I will amend my motion to policy and procedure 4040, public records request resolution 04-22 of appointing a new public records officer with item C stricken, maintenance of indexes.
Okay, item C stricken.
Andy, I don't want to bust your balloon here, but I think it's policy 4311, the first reading of the policy procedures, and the one you referred to is 422, naming the resolution for the new officer. So they're different. So I think you would just say your motion that you so moved, taking out section C, maintenance of indexes, would be the most simplistic way to do it.
Okay, so 0422 is the records officer and we want procedure 4040, correct? Because that's what mine says.
Let's see. And, okay, public 4040, public records request and resolution 4222.
Yeah.
I read the back. So I think that would do it.
So we're good then?
I think you're good.
Okay,
Okay,
let's vote.
okay, and it is there's a resolution attached to that, so we'll do a roll call.
Okay.
So, Jason,
Yes.
Elisa,
Yes.
Jeannie,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peggy, yes, so all yes. All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Herring Center proposal. Okay, well, it's on mine. Okay, so that one is removed. Okay. Okay, so then it's the first reading of policy and procedure 4311. Obviously, I didn't get the third revision copied.
Move to approve item C, first reading of policy and procedure 4311.
Okay, so motion by Andy,
Second.
seconded by Jason. Is there any comments on policy 4311?
I understand this is the first reading, but we still have some blanks in the policy. Are we gonna fill them in? I'm assuming before the next one, we have the purpose of the name the district, and then assessment modify is accurate for your district, and they're highlighted. So I'm thinking at the next reading, we'll have those blanks filled in.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But yeah, this is just first reading.
This was pretty much how they were provided when it went for Walter. Oh, was it? Oh.
These were the model policies. I had Selena do a review and it was very similar. But we can work on getting the board that information, the requested language or preferred language, I'll say, so that they can review that as well.
At our next meeting.
Sure.
Okay. So we.
Yes.
I just have a soft voice.
So really, are we, since this needs a lot more work, are we really wanting to approve the first reading for this, or are we leaving it alone with the approval for the first reading? But you will bring back, this is the model policy, but you'll bring back more of
Either preferred language or suggested
the more
edits.
preferred language. So is that okay? Do we want to go ahead and approve this as first reading so we can move forward with this? Okay, I have a motion on the table by Andy, seconded by Jason, to approve this for first reading with the understanding when it comes back, it will have cleaner language. Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so all yes, thank you.
The next two are the same way, so.
Yeah, so then the next one is first reading of policy and procedures 3225.
Move to approve first reading of policy and procedure 3225.
Andy, motion by Andy.
Second.
Seconded by Jason. And let's talk about it for a little bit. Is this this is more for your school safety and security, I'm assuming?
All three of them are.
Okay. So we have is this also needs to come back with more language? All right, so we have a motion on the table. Do we want to go ahead and approve this first reading and let it come back to the next meeting with cleaner language for the second reading? All right.
I think that, I want to clarify. It's not cleaner language, it's that this is a fill in the blank form and the blanks need to be filled in. So it's not changing the language, it's just saying Foster School District, not leaving it blank, put your district in. So the policy reads appropriately. But yeah, I think we can vote now.
Okay, so all in favor of approving this policy number 3225 for first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all yes, thank you. And then the first reading of policy 3226, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
That was motion by Jason, seconded by Elisa.
This one's the same way, I think.
There's no fill in the blanks, so
And it's for first
there weren't any blanks
first
filled in,
reading.
left out.
Yeah, we just need the blanks filled in on this
Actually,
one
no,
also.
No, this one doesn't have any.
Oh, it doesn't have any.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Okay. Down to where it is. Interviews and let's go. Okay. Would anybody like to speak to this policy? Any questions about it? Okay, it's motion by Jason, seconded by Elisa. All in favor of approving it for first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all yes, thank you. And I'm assuming all of those will come back to the next board meeting. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Prosser High School prom. And I would entertain a motion to approve the Prosser High School prom as presented by Mackenzie Lopez and Kevin Lusk.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Elisa, is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Andy. Is there any discussion?
I have a question, please.
Okay,
Down just above recommendation, it says utilizing the protocol and guidelines set by Department of Health and were used during homecoming earlier this year as required. What are those?
is Kevin?
Thank you.
It says there's two agreements. I assume one's a DJ. What would the other one be? Just the venue?
And did I hear you correctly, Kevin? You said the prom is going to be an outside venue? Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Elisa, seconded by Andy, to approve the request by Kevin Lusk and Mackenzie Lopez for the Prosser High School prom. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, yes, thank you. The last item is the classified personnel, and this was revised. I would entertain a motion to approve the classified personnel.
So moved.
Motion by Jason, seconded by Andy. Any discussion on the classified personnel as presented? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All yes, thank you. On to discussion items. Item A is the report of staff loss. Would you like to, is that yours or is that Greg's?
So the board had asked for totals of staff members who have been lost over, kind of a longitudinal look over staff member positions that have been open or staff members who either retired or transitioned out of the district. And so this is kind of a snapshot look of that.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
With Matt, this is regarding to your administrative assistant. We have one out left, 2021, but did you have a short administrative assistant for a brief period of time that should be reflected in this year's column 21, 22?
I had, so I had Deidre, but Deidre was a volunteer. And then we had Heidi for a really brief period of time. It was, I want to say it was almost a month. It might not have even been over that. So I don't know if she was processed. Deidre wasn't. Deidre was doing internship hours. And so she never really resigned. It was some voluntary type of work.
So then we need to add one more in that column then for 21, 22 for Heidi.
I had a question. Was this just solely where they just checked the box, or was there any opportunity for comment?
No, you know, Kim Bolt has worked hard on that survey and has launched it. And so we'll have anecdotal data back this year that the board can review.
Okay.
We've had, in the past, we've had teachers who've stayed with us for their career and administrators who've stayed with us for their career. But we've also had a number of people gravitate towards the Tri-Cities. Housing sometimes is cheaper in that direction. Districts pay more. So yeah, it's I don't think it's uncommon, but we don't have any anecdotal type of data. We could probably look at who retired and project that if the board wants.
My comment after looking it over, it seems like we have a high turnover at the lowest grades. Kindergarten through second, and then, you know, all the way through fifth grade. And that's over, you know, a few year period. And do we think that's related to retirement? Do we think it's burnout, moving on somewhere else? It seems to be focused in the younger grades.
Yeah, we had, some of them are teachers that we've all known and loved, especially during my tenure. Mark Little, Bob Alter, there's just been a number of them at the elementary level that were just fantastic teachers who came up through. I think Mark ended up at middle school, but yeah, I don't think that it's due to burnout, and I don't think that it's due to dissatisfaction. I think that it was more of kind of, you know, the employee's desire to retire.
You know, I also looked at this and I found it really interesting because the higher numbers, like the paras and like you were talking grade school, some of these people would have been out because they were expecting a baby. Perhaps the husband or wife got a better job and they left the district. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. A teacher that's teaching a subject that wasn't what they wanted, but they had to have a job and then found an opening in what their specialty was. I mean, there's just all kinds of reasons why people will leave. You know, so what I'd be interested in how it compares to other districts, but I agree with a lot of the things you said, better pay in a larger area, you know. So yeah, I found the whole thing interesting.
Peggy, I didn't hear your question. Did you ask about the exit interviews?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
I couldn't quite hear your question. Did you ask about the exit interviews?
I did. My question on it was, if there was an this was all just check a blank, check a square, and I asked if there was an opportunity for them to provide any written feedback also.
Okay.
And this apparently not on this, but the new format, there probably will be, and they could add something personal if they would like to, or additional if they would like to.
Craig actually just filled one out today, I think, didn't you, Craig? So.
And you said great things.
So great things.
Great.
Especially my staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to use a microphone.
Oh, make sure we get that on the record, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, well, thank you. I tell Kim I do appreciate the effort that went into putting this together, so. It is probably a good tool for us to have for the future. The next item on the agenda for discussion is the Public School Employees Week.
So this was more of just something I wanted to bring to the board's attention. So Classified School Employees Week, it was March 7th through 12th, I believe. But we did recognize them within the district. And these are the professionals that really support the work that goes on in the classroom. So all of our classified school employees, from custodians to parapros to bus drivers to cooks to everything. So we just wanted to appreciate them and tell them how much that they were appreciated.
And truthfully, we really couldn't do what we do here without every single one of them. So thank you. On to the baseball field netting. And this is Kevin Lusk.
Yeah, so we had some questions about basically some liability and in construction, what got cut from the baseball fields and ways that we could actually mitigate foul balls, home run hits, things like that from hitting apartments. And so I asked Kevin to do some bids and some quotes. And so Kevin, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Test, test. Yeah, so, and it was a little bit broader than that, trying to make sure that we are good neighbors in our spot up there to try to mitigate balls, whether they're coming from play or from the cages, et cetera, to make sure that we had appropriate cages to keep the balls on our side of the fence. So that's why you see the softball batting cages. Those were shot. So balls were leaving that area and ending up into the apartment. So that's the approximate cost of replacing those. There's actually 2 cages there. That would put us a lot more in an equitable fashion for our 2 sports up there. The second one is an item that the baseball team has had in the past, and boy, I can't keep track of the of when the damage actually happened, but it was probably 3-4 years back. Anyway, it's called a turtle. They call it a turtle. It's like a cage that comes up over the batter at home plate. So if you're on a baseball field, if you go to baseball games at college or pro, you'll see them bring those out before the games for batting practice. So the balls that are foul balls don't go anywhere. They stay right there by the plate and they don't end up in the neighbors or in the stands. So we've been wanting to and needing to have that to provide for the baseball team. That cost is about $5,000. I put Coach Shorsman's name there. He's the one who's been connecting with the manufacturers, et cetera, to provide that. It works for practice in situations, and you just wheel it outside of the fence and you play your game and you can bring it back as needed. But obviously if you had that, if you were using baseball was having live hitting or they were using their pitching machine out on the field, this cage would keep all of the balls near the plate and they would not have the opportunity to go over towards the apartments. But in addition, if you've been up to the stadium, the east side, which is the first base side, is right alongside the apartments there. There's probably at least a 50-foot, maybe 60-foot run that are backstop ends, and then there's an open space basically between home and first base that is right on the side of the apartments. We had 2, one of the bids went through our group that's doing the work at PHS and some of the other schools. That's the first bid, and the other one went through a local fencing company to do basically the same thing, and I think you'd have the documentations. But basically it would require putting approximately 3 to 4 posts, approximately 24 feet high, and then running, I think of it as golf course cages where they have the driving range, and so the cages don't have to be as heavy as they might be in a batting cage, but it would keep the balls that end up outside from going over into the apartments. So that was the three options that we had that we could mitigate and have an impact on being a good neighbor with the apartments.
I have a lot of questions on this one. First off, I know you said you talked to the baseball coach. Have you consulted both coaches, both softball and baseball, on these items?
On the batting cages, yes. The net that goes between the apartment and baseball, I didn't have a conversation with softball on that. I didn't think that was pertinent. On the turtle, that was an item that has been within the baseball program, but we have not had that request from a softball as well. So I didn't have that conversation with them. No, not relative to an additional turtle on their field.
Okay. The next couple of questions I have to do with the bids. Two things. The bid from Golf Range Netting is dated November 6, 2019. And it's my guess that that bid is probably no longer effective. So my concern is you brought forth two options that are probably not any good anymore.
So again, that came right from Dan Purfoy and our guys who were doing that work. That's where we asked for that. The second one was firsthand through Nate Kernan for Kiernan's fencing that you see there.
So I think probably what's more appropriate is to get an updated bid, because I can tell you, I can't imagine that the items that they've listed here, if they were bid in 2019, are the same price today as they were in 2019.
Well, it's only valid for 45 days.
So I think we've got some incomplete information.
Okay.
So I would suggest that maybe we get an updated bid for that. My second question has to do with Kernan fencing. Based on his bid, it's 4 24-foot posts, 4 foot in the ground. So that means it's only a 20-foot net.
Well, there's a fence that already is there.
Well, I understand that.
And it would be above that.
So it's still 20 feet. The backstop's about 32 feet.
Okay, and it's about 15 to 20 feet away from the field as well.
You know, watching baseball at this facility,
Yeah.
I don't think 20 feet's going to do much of anything. And then we still have to pay for the net, which is $5,000, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Also know that on that area, if you go over there, Jason, it's also an elevation difference as well. Besides the distance back, it's at the top of the, whatever that incline is from playing surface back there. And then the 4 to 5 foot fence, we would be from that top of that fence further up. So that's where we were working to get that.
So you'd be 14 feet above the fence.
No, it would be an additional 20 feet above that fence. The hope was to get it about 25 total feet from the ground level.
So I'm just going off your bid that we got. If we're buying 24-foot posts, putting a 4 foot in the ground, that's 20 feet.
I got that.
The fence is 6 foot.
Okay.
I think maybe it's 8. I can't
feet.
remember. I still don't see how you're getting 25 or 30 feet out of a 24-foot post. I guess that's my question. Okay. So I don't, seeing all the balls that fly up and over the 32-foot fence, I don't see how a 24-foot pole or 20-foot pole is going to do much of anything, even though it's 10 feet from the fence line.
Okay. We can ask for a bid for, we can change the dimensions and we can ask the bid.
Well, and that's my question. Have you asked the coaches? Is 20, if 20 feet's adequate, then I would probably, look at their expertise and being on the field every single day with the kids.
Yeah, that's why Coach Shorsman was with me and our maintenance director as we were looking at those and trying to have those conversations about what we did want to put out to bid. And we had Mr. Kernan available as well on site while we were doing that to get his input for just those things.
And they all agree that 20 feet's good enough?
Well, the best we could in how far you need to put it down, how much money it takes to do that, trying to keep it affordable. And I think we'd all agree that $90,000 piece didn't look affordable, so that's why we went.
No, I completely agree with
Yeah.
that, but I don't want to just put a Band-Aid on something, you know, because they're still going to fly over. I mean,
Yeah, we're probably not going to be perfect on that. The only way you do that would then be to try to increase some kind of overhang, and now you've impacted the game, and we didn't want to do that.
yeah.
Does the net stay up? Seasonal, year round?
You know, it's going to take a bit. I don't know if you noticed in there, they would have to get a certain kind of lift, obviously, to hang that net. So you'd have to do the opposite to bring it down, unless you had some kind of system built in that would allow you to raise and lower it. But probably a lot of the nets up at golf ranges and stuff are up year round, but the weather does have an impact on it, obviously.
Has anyone checked with the city if you're going to need a variance? City code allows for a 6-foot fence in city limits, so that might be a conversation that needs to happen, because we're going to be well over 60.
Okay.
So I would have a question for you, Kevin. Way back when, in fact, I went back and asked both Scott and Scotty and Peggy about this. We had all these same discussions like a year ago, you know, a year and a half ago. When did it get axed?
Because it was all.
Because I thought, I swore I remembered this was a, you know, yeah, we need to do this. And I was really taken back a few weeks ago when I found out that not only did it not happen, but
Are you talking about the
net.
the net? I know there's been conversation, but I was never brought in to say, let's go get this figured out. Because we'd had the conversation whether it was gonna be necessary or not. And again, we hadn't seen what the function is gonna be. We're still figuring that out.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jason makes a good point. We've been at most of the games there, and there's balls that are leaving. It's not every ball. I'm actually surprised that there's not more going there, but we'd like it to be zero. And whether you could attach to the current structure, which is another conversation that we had, and we had with the guys that put it in, or have to go behind it was part of the conversation. And not attaching was the recommendation, try to do something that's standing on its own. So that's why we went back further. It's elevated a little bit. It might have a better impact. That was the thinking.
I agree with Jason, though. If we're buying a 20-foot tall net, there's already an 8-foot tall fence. You know, then he needs like 40-foot tall poles. There's no sense in having 8-foot of fence covered with a net it's irrelevant. So.
And part of that was in the cost too, because in order to make the structure significant enough and safe enough, is that you needed also the bracing that's going to go in between. So whatever that's going to be, every 8 feet or whatever, to have extra bracing and stuff to make sure that's going to stand up there.
Have you ever considered running it off the light poles?
We talked about that a little bit. It's that span that was a concern, and what you have to attach to them, and then what kind of stress you have to put in order to hold it up. So we moved to let's put something behind it was the thinking. We can ask that question. I can get the guys up at the architect and see if that's a possibility.
Because I think between each light pole is about 150 feet. When I paste it off, it's pretty stinking close.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's something you put one pole in the middle. You pay for one big pole and a long net, and then you can stretch it, you know.
Right, and maybe go from the backstop that is there to the first light pole and then to the second light pole, because I still think there's a gap in there that might be an issue.
Something to think about.
Okay.
I don't think the public utility would let us use their pole because of safety to the linemen having worked there. But the other thing we might think about, maybe they would donate poles.
No, it's the lights that the school owns, not the utility. Is that right?
Yeah, the field lights.
Oh, okay, the field lights. Okay.
But maybe we can get a donated power
I
pole.
mean, poles are expensive, but that might be something they would do. Great publicity for them. That's worth approaching them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think maybe though we're all in agreement, we need to come back to us with some current estimates. And I guess I'd also like to know that the net itself, when the old bid was given was $5,000, probably more now. It only cost $250 for the lift. It seems probably want to take it down and not leave it up. If it's only that costs us $250 to rent the lift to take it down when it's not season and store it, probably would last us a whole lot longer if we take it down and put it up when we're not using it. So we do need to have you come back with numbers, and since the season is here, we probably need that sooner rather than later.
There, just something to add that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I turned my mic off. See all that? Anyway, I just asked Kevin to come back with some current bids, and probably sooner rather than later, since baseball season is here. And with the price of the nets being $5,000 or more, and the cost of a lift to put it up only being about $250, we probably, it's probably to our benefit to look at something that we can take down when it's not baseball season, so that we can make those nets last us a bit longer. So,
You know, we can always plan around. It's twice a year, you'd be up and down.
right.
But we can always plan around when it comes to changing out lights in the parking lot and other stuff to knock out 2 or 3 projects.
Just a couple considerations. I've had 2 different conversations. One of them was about the tennis courts needing to be resurfaced or completely redone because of perceived dangers and cracks, and Kevin might be able to speak to that. But in addition to that, with this idea of a possible second levee failure, hopefully not, but if we do encounter that, then the discussion around resource allocation and where the district is spending money. And so I do think the way, just to add on to Andy's discussion, I thought I remember at that meeting there being some sticker shock around like a $90,000 price tag or something. And then of course we have encountered in the past kind of Title IX and some equitability issues between baseball and softball. So those all make it a kind of a complex discussion about facilities improvement, and there is liability too. I know Jason had spoke to that, like how many cars need to get busted up, how many apartment windows need to get broken or house windows before, you know, we really take this into consideration, or a foul ball hitting somebody, right? God forbid. So that whole safety piece and the being a good neighbor piece, I think is important. And I know Kevin was, I want to just give a kudos to him for being really proactive with the lights and the double headers and getting that information out to neighbors and on social media about that, and really working to try and focus the lights in on the field. So I appreciate your work on that, Kevin.
I thank you, Matt. I would like to give a piece of information back to the board in that work as well. Had an opportunity to talk to Jeff Gray, who is one of the engineers, electrical engineers on all of our projects, because I was getting questions about, well, gee whiz, we light them up for football and I don't hear anything for that. What's the difference between those lights and the baseball lights? But I asked him the cost, because a lot of people want to know, well, how expensive is that? The lights at the stadium, according to Jeff Gray, it's about $10 per hour. And those are older lights. So if we run a football games 3-4 hours, it's going to be $30-40 bucks. Baseball field is $2.49 an hour to turn those on. They're that much more efficient. And we pay $25 for the meter a month. Anyway, Jeff offered to send $100 to us and say, you put my plaque on there. I paid for the lights for the year. I might take him up on that. But I just want to make sure you guys had because our people in the community are going to ask, you know, how expensive is that really? So it's pretty darn cost effective as far as lights are going. And there's other pressures that we get. I was just spent 3 hours at a meeting today with the YVIA and conversations about officials and officials shortage and the frustrations that schools have trying to get enough officials to do baseball, softball, basketball, you name it. And a lot of times they are pushing teams to play on different days that are not normal days, but you can get officials, which is fine. We're up to that. But the big conversation was who has lights, because you can get a group to do a softball game at 3 and 5 and turn around and do some baseball games at 7 o'clock. But you could get officials because the same guys who do the softball will show up for the baseball. So it's and they asked who in the valley all the way up to Sela, et cetera, who has lights. So that's a fix for our community and kids to be able to play and have umpires and stuff in certain things. So we need to just know that, and we want to be flexible and be able to serve our kids.
Just to throw it out there, Kevin, not to throw you under the bus for the bids. I understand that's just what you were given with the dates and all. I mean, if that's what Dan gave you, it's what he gave you.
I'm getting that from those guys. They're the professionals on it. So they're the
other
guys that we've been working with.
Yeah,
so,
no, I understand. Second comment, that's not a bad idea, especially if we have Grandview, Mapton, Benton City, none of which have lights. Rent it out. Odd nights, late games, whatever.
That's fair. But that is an impact for those people who live in that area. And I think that we've all been really conscientious of that and been sensitive to that. And if I will get out of here in a second, but I did have a chance to go with another engineer who met me up at the field about last Thursday and turned the lights on at 9 o'clock at night. So he could fly his drone and take the pictures from 300 feet up of what the work that they did. Boy, if you look from that angle, they really did a good job of shadowing the edge of the field. And they sent that in to the people who did the lights. So if there's more adjustments they can do, they will do that. But that's also information that we can get out to our constituents and neighbor that we're trying to be proactive to keep that to a minimum.
Yeah, I do. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Is this because it's an addition to the new baseball field? Does this come out of the capital budget? Or does it come? Okay, thank you. So sorry.
Also, if you're getting newer bids, would you talk to the Kernan Fence and find out if they could do,
He's the easiest one to get a hold of right now, so that'll be the first call.
But yeah, there's no sense in paying for a 20-foot net if 6 feet of it's covering a fence. It's irrelevant. So
get a bigger one.
Yeah, if he could stretch it out a little more, I mean that makes way more sense.
So on this, I know this is a discussion item, but can they move forward on certain things? Like what do we need? Like me personally, I think they can move forward on the softball batting cages. Just because they're unusable anyways. And I don't know about the turtle, but I mean, I think it's wise, but I also think maybe, check with the softball and see if they need something to help them out too, without chasing balls through the parking lot and stuff.
Yeah, we can start with that. Is that all right with everybody? Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
But I'd also like to make sure that the softball team gets something appropriate as well. Yep.
Coughing, and I didn't want to cough with the mic. Yes, so we're what Jason has proposed is the moving forward with the softball batting cages and with the turtle. And I think even though it's on here for discussion, do you want to make that a proposal and we'll vote on it?
I would probably make a motion to approve the softball netting.
Okay. And the turtle.
Motion for the softball netting.
Okay. And seconded by Andy for the softball netting. And the turtle.
The only thing, I mean, I do think it's warranted, but I think the softball team needs to have some input on whatever they need. So if we could do the turtle and whatever the softball program would like to have in similarity, or maybe they want the same thing. I don't know.
Okay. So motion by Jason, seconded by Andy, to move forward with the softball netting and
Turtle.
and the turtle. Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I have a question
Okay, I'm
procedurally.
sorry, Elisa.
Can we do that if it's not an action item and it's a discussion item? Is that allowed in Robert's Rules of Order? If we approve the consent agenda at the beginning of the meeting and we're not taking a discussion item and making it an action item?
Okay, so
Well,
we-
That's my question. Is that allowed?
The board will approve the final expenditures
Okay,
later.
we're just
Yeah,
agreeing
you
to
can do
move
it
forward then.
that
informally.
sounds good.
We can spend that money and then
Okay.
it comes back to the board as for approval
Okay.
for
We're
expenditures
just gonna
that.
agree
Maybe
to-
to clarify, it's a vote of consensus.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we're agreeing to just informally do it. I would have voted yes.
I
All
think
right.
it's needed.
Thank you. All right, moving on to reports. Assistant Superintendent for Business?
Before I get into the financials, just a brief report. We had an entrance conference with the auditor via Zoom on Thursday. And I believe that the entrance document was mailed to all the board members. The audit will go over the financials, and then they pick a federal program, and the federal program they picked is the ESSER $1. And again, I'm not sure what ESSER stands for anymore, but Elementary Secondary Act, something. Anyway, federal dollars. So that's what they'll be reviewing. Hopefully they'll finish up. He said the end of March, but we'll see. Then on the financials, just a couple of comments. This is February, and the very first page after the cover sheet shows that for the month of February, our expenditures exceeded revenues by $226,000. Through the year, our revenue, depends how you ever want to say it, right? Revenues are less than expenditures by 2 million, almost 2.1 million. We are halfway through the year. So you notice on that same page, the percentage of revenue received is 44.27%. And our expenditures so far the year are at 47.46. So we're not quite at 50%. But yet, if you look at 1920 or 2021 years, you know, our percentage of expenditures were a little bit higher, except in 1920. So my point is that I'm going to come up with a estimate of where we're going to end up at the end of the year. My guess, certainly as we keep moving on towards the end of the year, it'll be a better estimate, but I at least got to start to look at dollars and see where we are. If you look at the page after the graph, which says general fund budget status for 21-22, Mr. Rayner had a question about the year-to-date FTEs of enrollment, and you probably can't hardly read that note one down towards the bottom. If you have a magnifying glass, you can, but, and I need to probably make it in bigger font, but for September through December, it is based on our budget, and then in January forward, the apportionment is based on the actual year-to-date. So that's the answer to that question. I do want to make a comment that the supplies and operating costs were higher in February than January, mostly due, we purchased some computers with our ESSER 2 funds, and we also had some pretty healthy contracts for special education services paid to ESD 123. And that's the general fund. The capital project fund, which I don't have a graph, but just a budget status report for, the 19 million that is budgeted is for completing the high school project and then remodeling Riverview and Heights. So we are only, less than 38% so far, but like I say, the Fowler bill, is starting to get pretty higher now as they ratchet up their work, trying to complete it before summer's out. So we'll see some higher bills with Fowler in the future. And again, that 19 million is an estimate that we received from our construction manager. The Transportation Vehicle Fund, which is actually the last page, we do have a bus that's on order that we're trying to make sure that the timing is that it comes in at the end of August. The state pays us depreciation in the Transportation Vehicle Fund on August 31st every year. And so we try and match that payment with our revenue on that same day. Now, if there were some conversations about the bus not being able to come in until late in the fall, then certainly we wouldn't. We'd just do a purchase order and budget it for next year's budget. The other thing I wanted to mention is I did get a text from Lori Green, our accounts payable, about the AT&T lines. She let me know we have 25 cell phone lines.
Thank you. That was fast.
Yeah, that was fast. So she's listening. Lori, thank you for that. Any other questions on the financials? Like again, I'm going to be looking at a projection through the end of the year, and then we're starting to do enrollment projections for next year and starting to work on the budget. So this is high time to start working on that.
Did you say the balance of the capital fund is $19 million?
No, that's what the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, the budget was 19 million, and we've only spent what? So far this year, we've spent 7.3. So that's, I think what Mr. Rayner was wondering why that's a pretty big balance left to spend, but I think they'll start to ratchet up pretty quickly here.
Craig, you said early you're gonna start doing a forecast starting this next business meeting. You'll have one, or okay.
And I do want to mention that at our last Wednesday meeting, we would like a couple of board members to meet with me and Matt and Deanna probably to start looking at some possible levy reductions. I'm not sure, I know you're pretty busy, but I think you and Jeannie maybe had mentioned that you would want to be involved in that. So maybe just shoot me, I mean, I work in the afternoon, it doesn't matter to me at night, whenever you're done. I'd like to have some board buy-in, understanding where we're going on that. So maybe just let me know if you have something next week or whatever would work.
Can we do it this week?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I'll get back to you.
Okay, yeah, tomorrow's open, Friday, whatever. I do want to then go to the enrollment. And I have my trusty assistant here. She's going to be mad at me tomorrow. But Sonia, you're the one that she does the graph. So thank you very much, Sonia. We had 16 new students to the district during March and 31 withdrawals. And you can see that of those 31, 20 moved out and 12 moved in to the district. And I just wanted to point out again that this is the full-time equivalent students, and I'm not including the virtual students that were, because, as you can see, we claim the FTE, but we pay out, $129,000 or whatever. So I just wanted to kind of just let the board know this is the money that we really actually have control over, so to speak. So we're up 16 full-time equivalent students district-wide above the budget. So the budget was 2356. Or excuse me, yeah, 2356, and we're at 2372 so far year to date through the month of March. So that's really all that I have to discuss tonight. Any questions I can answer?
Thank you, Craig. the assistant superintendent's report for curriculum and instruction.
So we've already talked about the communities and schools report, so I won't talk about that. It made me think, as Craig was talking, I do have our buildings each checking with students who are online, fully online families, to see if we continue to offer a fully online program next year. Would they want to continue, so we can get some numbers and see make some decisions around that. My only other thing is tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, our dual credit fair. I hope there's people listening. I know people in the audience. Your students can earn college credit. They do not have to go to Running Start. They can choose to go to Running Start, but they can earn lots of college credits at the high school here on the site in classes here. We're hoping to get that word out because I think there's a lot of people that don't know or understand that they can earn credits while they attend the high school. And it doesn't really matter which college or university they come from, because you can always transfer those if you plan to go to a different university or college in the future. So it's tomorrow at 6 o'clock. We'll have a session in the gym to start where we talk about information, make sure people understand, and then all of the students and families will be able to go around and talk to the individual teachers from the different programs. We also have WSU Tri-Cities, CBC, YVC, Eastern Washington University, and Central Washington University will be here represented tomorrow as well, because there are dual credit college in the high school and Running Start colleges. And there's dinner, so you can take dinner to go home with you. So please come if you have an 8th through 11th grader. Even if you don't, maybe you have a 6th or someone and a younger student, you can start to learn about those courses and what's possible and what's available. And there we have quite a few courses. So board members, I hope we'll see some of you tomorrow as well.
I have one question, Deanna. On the communities and schools progress report, that they come up with their own programs, and I don't know, I mean, it's not really instructional, but I mean, whatever they're doing to get the kids back into the class and be successful.
Yeah, so they actually undergo quite a bit of training. Communities and Schools is a national organization. And so there's tried and true methods, the research-based methods that they use. And that's really where they start, kind of from that attendance, because kids aren't going to be successful if they aren't at school having regular attendance. And they look for to support the family in whatever reasons that might be the case. So that's one of their big supports. Actually, United Way has an Attendance Matters campaign too, because getting kids to school is the biggest deal. But yes, it is their formula, how they run things, but they work hand in hand with our building administrators, and our counselors, and, learning what kids might have some needs. And kids go right to them. They learn that they're a resource that they can go to and get help, so.
Thank you. I do have one question on the support provided to the case managed students. It's just right above the pie chart. One of the headings is diversity, equity, inclusion, which includes groups, bulletin boards, awareness events. Can you describe those? What's all entailed with that?
I cannot, so I will have to ask them and come back and tell you later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Mr. Ellis, would you like to give your report tonight?
Yeah, so I'm going to start out by talking about bonds and levies. I was in contact with Ed Champagne and Dan Purefoy. So they'll be advertising in April for Whitstrand for the contractor bids, and then it'll go out to bid in early May. And so the theme of kind of this discussion is that April and May are going to be pretty intense months for us. The levy, of course, ballots go out on the 8th, election day is the 26th, and then it's certified on May 6th. And then if it does pass, we can celebrate. If it doesn't pass, of course, we need to let employees know by May 15th. And so we have, the month of April is pretty critical, I think, for directionally for which way we'll go. I've been working with Cougar Digital Media on updating our communications. I worked with Deanna today on presenting information to school district staff. we have some facilities issues as we had talked about tonight, the baseball field. We had gone out and got a bid for the generator at HMS. There are some chillers out at the old PHS, which we've kind of put a Band-Aid and got air conditioning units in each classroom. The safety and security group talked about cameras and PA systems. Of course, we have the football stadium kind of hanging out there as well, and tennis courts. And so just to bring that to the board's attention, I'm going to try and have Brian Aberg move forward with the generator at the middle school. It's part of the city's plan, and it's also been down for a number of years. So unless the board wants to direct otherwise, we're going to try and have that repaired through a firm named Western States. Based upon our Wednesday meeting, I sent off a proposal to Patterson, and I'm waiting to hear back on that. Communications, as I talked about, and I also talked about it in my weekly update, we're having more and more people download our app that's linked to our website, as well as redoing our, our communications for the levy measure. Healthy Youth Survey, you have a copy of this. This is actually a pretty important document. You saw my email that it was embargoed, that they didn't want me to share until they had released the information. But this deals with mental health and substance abuse of our students at different grade levels. And so it's important to have that data in hand when we start talking about student supports and programs that we need or don't need. I was able to work with Mr. Funk on a high school work group that will be actually bringing this work back to the board, as well as vetting it through teachers and administrators. The student work group was around high school dress code and trying to update that. Other than that, I do want to thank technology. They've been stressed out, and we're trying to, basically put a Band-Aid with their department. They've been pulled in so many different directions. And so we're going to try and hire some subs in order for them to be able to do their work more efficiently and effectively. But I want to thank you to them for all their hard work. I just wanted to present that to the board. So any questions on any of the material that I presented?
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. All right, on to board reports. Jason, would you like to go first?
I don't have much, but I do have some concerns, and I think we all know, the facilities that we have within our school district. I don't know how to describe it other than maybe like a lack of pride for our facilities. Matt, you mentioned the tennis courts. I mean, that could have been remedied over time. I just walked the 8th grade softball field at the middle school, and it looks like a gravel pit. And I'm not talking small gravel, I'm talking boulders. So, I mean, I think some of our facilities that we have that we should take pride in, we're not. And I don't know where that's lacking or where that's slipped. And hopefully it'll start getting better. But, currently, I mean, it's not even safe to practice on that 8th grade field. And I think that's a shame considering they are starting softball. And we wait till the last minute to address stuff like this. So I really think it needs to be a sense of pride, not only within our staff, but our community, that we look at, we take pride in what we got. It's not cheap to fix. We should be better stewards of what we got. Thank you.
Thank you. Alisa?
Sure. Has Craig's job been posted?
No, not yet. I have actually 2 drafts that I was going to send to the board. One was for a business manager position. One was for his current position. And so just for the board to review, and then I have some price points on that as well, is how much a business manager would run you versus an assistant soup. And I can send those out as soon as tomorrow. for the board to review those and give me some direction on how they would like it to be posted.
And when do we think they need to start? The new person.
When would this person need to start?
Right. How much time do you need to train them, Craig, before you
Yeah.
leave?
A month would be probably helpful.
So by the end of, by June 1st, they need to start?
I guess a lot of it probably depends upon their experience.
Right.
Great, darn it. If they have experience, probably a couple weeks is all I would need, but if they're pretty new, probably a month.
So do we need to interview by mid-April? Early April? If someone's leaving employment, we need to give them an opportunity to give significant timely notice.
Middle of April, end of April, probably at the latest.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we need to get that posting out would be my suggestion as soon as possible. I did have a teacher reach out to me about, and this is a question from the teacher and for me, do we allow, and I wouldn't see why we would not allow it, I'm in favor of it, of teachers using Amazon or other resources available to teachers for online fundraising for parents or community groups to donate for supplies to their classrooms?
Yeah, so when I came in, there was a lot of GoFundMe accounts.
Right.
And so there was a lot of equity and disparity. So for those who went out on GoFundMe, they would get new supplies and new things. And then for those who didn't, they wouldn't. And then there was also, you know, a little bit of a demographic makeup in classes or teacher popularity involved. So if you had affluent students with affluent parents, of course they would donate. And so we tried to say the district, and that goes back to even part of this levy, is that we weren't going to hit you up twice. We were going to ask taxpayers for adequate resources, and then we wouldn't do GoFundMe or pages where people could donate. And so we tried to make the commitment at the district level that we would provide what the teacher needed at that point. And so there isn't any policy that speaks against it, but we've tried to say we're not gonna ding you more than, you know, we're not gonna come knocking at your door and say we need more money for our classrooms, even though you're paying it in a number of different ways. So that was kind of the thought and idea. And then with ASB, one of the shifts that we made was that our kids would engage in kind of more entrepreneurial activities. And so it wasn't just a GoFundMe for a team. It was the fact that they had to go out and sell something, and they would have that experience of selling to a customer and talking to somebody face to face and say, this benefits something, and you get something in return for it, whether it be a food product or a shirt or a sweatshirt.
That's something we could talk about in our next work session.
Absolutely.
Regarding that, the GoFundMes for the classrooms. I think that the teachers are seeing a need for items in their classroom, and we're not able to fund it, and they can do it. I mean, it just benefits the students in their class. I think that's something we should consider. And then my last item I have for tonight is I'd like us at our next work session to review the board reimbursement policy. I think we're in a deficit. I think we're asking for a second levy ask, and we need to remove that policy that board members get paid.
Okay. Okay.
Jeannie, do you have your mic on?
If anything, mostly what I've done since we last met was work on levy stuff. I've attended some meetings, whether they were community or at our buildings, our school buildings. And also I sat in on the session with Craig on the audit. I found it interesting. And looking forward to getting more work done on the levy. That's it.
Hey, Andy.
Jason and I had our Wednesday work session, safety security meeting. It went very well. We got 4 policies or 3 policies updated. got an update on some of the things that needed fixed, prioritized. And one of the things I would like to agree with Jason, I think for a long time, things were, especially at the high school, but overall were allowed to be let go in hopes of a new building. And when that didn't take place, everything was so far behind. Since we brought Matt in, there's been a little bit of a change in a focus on things, but there's a lot to do. You know, and it all takes time, so.
Good.
That's all I got.
Okay, well, I have a couple of things. First of all, I did enjoy the entrance conference again with the auditors. Good group of auditors that have been working with the district. And then I've been very busy with the levy committee and with Jeannie working on just getting out there in the public. I've been spending usually between 5 and 6 days a week doing something with the levy. And then next I have just kind of a statement. Over the past few months, I've endured unfair criticisms and abusive comments. Many of these comments have attacked me personally and were intended to cause mental and emotional anguish. As a board chair, I want to state that I'm one of 5 members of a governing body. The criticisms fault me personally for many of the issues we need to confront at the district level. I know I have a good heart, and I accepted the role of board chair in order to try to help the board transition to a new team. Many of the social media issues were about COVID and masking. It was a difficult time for everyone. However, during the last months, the tone has changed and it has become very personal. These attacks have been led by a new member to our school board. The most recent theme has been to question my personal integrity and my honesty. It has been very painful when she told me that when the upcoming school levy failed, it would be my fault personally.
Peggy, I'm going to stop you.
I'm sorry.
This is not an episode of Murray Povich. This is a professional meeting of the Prosser School District. And I have never said that. We need to focus on the business of the district.
I would agree with that, Peggy. Peggy,
then went on
Peggy,
to encourage
this has
people.
got to stop.
This is not
You cannot do
professional.
that in a board
You
meeting.
need to stop, Peggy.
Excuse me, you're not.
You're
Amazing.
personally attacking me, and that's a lie what you have said. I have never said that to you.
Her first Facebook post then went on
I
to
make a
encourage
motion to
people. I
Adjourn
barely
the meeting.
know.
I make a motion to
call me
censor Peggy.
deceitful
I second that
and
motion.
dishonest.
Call for the
those who
question, call for a
truly know
vote.
me, I believe they would disagree with these hateful
I say aye.
postings. I'm proud of my work for the school
Anybody else
and
want
the
to vote?
community. Board decisions are made as a team.
Jeannie?
And we have followed the guidance of experts. I have had the privilege of working with many quality past board presidents and members and administrators, and we have made many positive changes in our district. Our school board is struggling to find a common ground. I am confident with hard work and some trust, we might be able to get there. But until we do, the journey will continue to be difficult. It takes all 5 of us wanting the same thing, wanting what is best for the children, staff, and community of Prosser. Finally, I take the threats that have been made linking me to my position as board chairperson directly to the potential failure of the upcoming levy election on April 26th very personal. Therefore, effective at the end of tonight's meeting, I will step down as the school board chairperson. The success of the levy for the children of Prosser and for our amazing staff is certainly more important to me than a title. I love this district and I want to continue to help it improve in a positive way as one of the members of the governing body. I will continue to serve out my full term as an active member of the board, supporting the children and staff of the district while representing my community. Thank you, Peggy Douglas. And that's my board report for tonight. Our future meetings, we have an additional meeting on April 13th, and that'll be at the high school auditorium here. We will now move into executive session to discuss the performance of a public employee. And following that, we will possibly take action after the executive session on the extension or non-renewal of a superintendent's contract. This is RCW 42.30.110(1)G. And we will probably be in executive session for at least 1 hour. And yep, we're going to take a 10-minute recess, and we will come back into executive session at 8:03. Okay. It sounds like technology is saying we're ready. I'd like to welcome everybody back into regular session from executive session. We've just completed the evaluation of our Superintendent Matt Ellis. And moving on to the next item on the agenda tonight is I'd like to entertain a motion to entertain a vote for approving the extension of Superintendent Ellis's contract for 1 additional year.
You don't have to do that procedurally. The evergreen clause would automatically do it. You only take action to not enforce the evergreen clause. So I move that we do not renew the evergreen clause of the superintendent's contract.
Okay. I have a motion by
Second.
Elisa not to renew the contract.
And she's to not renew the evergreen,
Correct.
not necessarily.
Correct. So the contract contains an evergreen clause. The contract is currently good through June 2024. The evergreen clause, if no action was taken, would add another year, extending the contract through June 2025. My motion was to not extend, was to not enact the evergreen clause. And it was seconded by Jason.
Okay, there was a motion by Elisa and a second by Jason, which would mean that his contract would not roll to 2025.
Correct.
Is there any discussion on that?
Yeah, I'd like to, the point of this is not a reflection on Matt and his productivity within the district. Okay. What the evergreen clause is, it ties us to another year. My suggestion is that we do not enact the evergreen clause. That way, his contract would still run through June of 2024, pushing us to, when we evaluate Matt next year, we have the opportunity to enact it at that point and carry it another year. So it's my suggestion, and that's why I second it, is to forego 1 year and reevaluate next year.
However, he does have his current contract does say that he has the evergreen clause is a part of his current contract.
It's a separate
which
clause.
Says that at the end of each year, you automatically will add, or you have that opportunity to automatically add that third year.
Or not.
Or not. And so, and what you're saying is you would like to take that part of his contract that was negotiated last year away from him.
No, the contract contains an evergreen clause that each year can be renewed, enacted, or not enacted. So the contract would still be good through 2024. Next year, we could come back and say, okay, we're gonna continue it to 2025. It doesn't void his contract in any way.
We have a motion and a second. Vote.
Okay, we have a motion by Elisa, seconded by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. That's 3 noes. Okay. So the,
Are you
The-
abstaining, Jeannie? You said you didn't understand it. So are you abstaining or voting yes? Okay, so then it's 2 and 2.
I thought I heard her say that she voted nay initially.
She said nay, but she didn't understand.
okay, did you say nay? You were. Originally I did. Okay, so we have 3 nays and 2 yays.
Unless she amends her vote.
We're gonna do a roll call. All in favor of Elisa's motion to not do the evergreen, to eliminate the evergreen clause this year?
That's incorrect.
It's
We're
not
not
in-
eliminating it.
And all in favor of Elisa's motion, please, please vote now. So Jason? Yes. Yes. Elisa? Yes. No? No. Peggy, no. Okay. So we have 2 yeses and 3 noes. All right, next, so the next vote is what I said. Right. So then all, I entertain a motion to approve. You don't have to, next year, you don't have to do that because the contract automatically does it, so a motion is not necessary. So, let the record show that Mr. Ellis's contract will roll for an additional year, according to the other clause. And so, his contract will now. Recording in progress.
Okay, his contract will expire June 30th of 2025.
Was that all recorded? Thank you.
Okay. So do we have any, if we have no other business, the meeting is adjourned.